This Valentine's Day, get a Heart Baker pizza from Papa Murphy's. You complete us. And we mean that literally. With Take and Bake, we prepare it, you make it yours. So make us yours today. Papa Murphy's. Change the way you pizza.
The Utah Jazz beat the Toronto Raptors 131-128. Walker Kessler had a double-double, 17, 14, and 7 incredible blocks. And I think the overhype train is way out of the station on Walker Kessler. I think Walker's a great player. He's not the best center in the NBA. Yeah. We need to stop saying that because he's not better than Joel Embiid. He's not like – he is a good rookie player. That's what he is right now. And I think we've told you, I think he should start every single game. Okay, well, now he is. I think when he starts, he's going to average a double-double. Well, now he is, right? And you're seeing the limited ability of Kelly Olynyk compared to Walker Kessler, who is one of the better rim runners in the NBA right now. And I think he's one of the better shot blockers in the NBA right now. But he's not the best center in the NBA, and I want to be careful. I think we need to temper expectations for Walker, because is this not exactly what we did to Rudy Gobert? Mm-hmm. And you guys are dicks for being wrong on... Rudy Gobert was a great player for what he was. Walker Kessler's a great player for what he is. But you've got to give him time and space to develop. He is not a good offensive player at this point. He is a reactionary offensive player. You can throw him lobs. He can run the pick and roll. And he's a phenomenal rebounder, so he's going to get his in putbacks. And he's a great shot blocker. No, Walker Kessler, not Rudy Gobert. Because do you notice how you describe their games the same way? Great shot blocker. Who am I talking about? Rudy Gobert or Walker Kessler? Great shot blocker. Really good rebounder. Really limited offensive player. Really good in the pick and roll. Catches lobs exceptionally well. Like, there's no differential at this point. So calling Walker Kessler the best center in the NBA, I think, is a massive mistake.
Yeah, man, I completely agree. I mean, he had a great game. I love watching the guy play basketball, 100%. I mean, again, we're not saying he sucks. I think
no, not at all.
You just can't say he's Joel Embiid good. You can't say he's Jokic good. Like, let's not get into the weeds on Walker Kessler. Yeah, the guy made the Rising Stars game. That's great. That's everything that you would want in your rookie season. I still maintain this summer, dude needs to get in the weight room and lift some weights, and dude needs to come back with a jump shot. If he does those two things, he'll be an all-star next year. He will be on the all-star game roster. He will, because he will be able to affect games at a much higher rate. He'll be able to give you 25 a night, because he's got, 3 or 4 pick and pop jumpers that give him an extra 6 to 8 points a night, which in this league is a big deal as far as all-star and accolades and stats and all that good stuff. So to me, I just look at this and I say Walker Kessler is talented and he needs to develop. And the difference is now, I feel like because Fizdale is here, Walker Kessler can develop. And by the way, it's no surprise that Pau Gasol is attached to the Rising Stars game and he's going to be part of All-Star Weekend. I really do feel like Walker Kessler's game can grow into what Pau Gasol was for the league in his day. And I think if that ever happens, the Jazz are going to be in a great place because you've already got Laurie doing what Laurie's doing. And if you can get Walker to be a threat offensively that the defense has to respect, that's everything you could ever want out of a starting center. Yeah.
And I just go slow. Enjoy the ride. Enjoy the pace of his development because he's developing at an exceptional level. Enjoy the fact that Danny Ainge dominated the Minnesota Timberwolves to get that deal done that included Walker Kessler. Enjoy that. Absolutely enjoy the fact that you're watching a guy bloom right before your eyes, and not just one, two, because Laurie had a great game last night as well. I thought he really affected the game. And I think one of the interesting storylines coming out of last night is Colin Sexton was actually really solid last night. I think this is one of the better games he's played for the Jazz. And I think there is a real serious conversation about whether or not the Utah Jazz should trade or hang on to Colin Sexton. Mm-hmm. And when I see him play the way he played last night, I think you got to lean towards hanging on to Colin Sexton. Because I think he is a guy who can get back to being that consistent 20-point-a-night guy. Yeah. The question is, will he ever be a 5, 7, 8, 10 dime guy? Will he ever be a team player inside of an offense, Jake? And the answer is I don't know, but I'd certainly like to find out next season. I hope they hang on to him.
Yeah. I mean, again, he's just another guy that needs development. I think that, again, it's like, I feel like this conversation gets repetitive, but it just is what it is. Like, Colin Sexton, Walker Kessler, like even Laurie, these guys who are the core of your team right now, they need development. They need to continue to get minutes. And we're in this Instagram chat last night and I'm sitting here talking about how, you're seeing some growing pains with Colin Sexton. There are some things he does inside of the game where you're like, man, like I wish he wouldn't have turned it over there. Like that seems like a pretty easy play to run, but he still turned it over. Like those are things that young players do. So to me, it's just, these guys, you just have to keep giving them minutes. But I think the difference between Walker Kessler and Colin Sexton is I don't think Walker Kessler is getting moved under any circumstances. I think Colin Sexton could be available for a price inside of a trade. I think that, you're not married to Colin Sexton, but you are married to Walker Kessler, as you should be, because I think Walker Kessler projects to be really top-end player in this league, but he's got to continue to develop. And I maintain that there's no excuse for not having a jump shot in today's NBA. None. Like, I don't feel bad for Rudy Gobert because he can't shoot a basketball. You're an NBA player. You've got everything you need to develop a jump shot. There's no excuse. And so to me, it's like with Walker Kessler, I know he's got a little bit of a jump shot, but that jump shot, the confidence level on that thing's got to go way up. You got to be able to read, okay, my guy is playing sag defense and I have a bunch of room to shoot this thing at the elbow extended. Let me go ahead and take this shot because that's what my team needs me to do. And you got to be able to make that 3 or 4 times a game because that's the number of opportunities you're getting.
Yeah, and I also think that when you look at some of the numbers that we've been looking at, I think you're getting really good contributions across the board. And I think this policy of, hey, Walker Kessler and Lauri Markkanen are largely untouchable. I mean, it would be 10 first-round picks and, $69 million in cash. Like, I don't even know what it would take to get Lauri Markkanen and Walker Kessler out of here, right? And I think that's exactly how it should be. And I think when you look at the way this game in particular last night, I just thought really was telling about the Jazz, because I think you need Colin Sexton to begin to thrive under Will Hardy. Because one of the conversations I've had quite a bit about Will Hardy is he is a guy that makes snap decisions on players. And if you're good, you're in. If you're in, hey, good. But like you look at Talon Horton-Tucker. Talon Horton-Tucker's involved in that Phoenix, Atlanta, Utah trade a month ago. And all of a sudden he starts getting a good bit of minutes, a lot of minutes. Well, now you play him too much. He gets overexposed. So now you're not playing him at all. And I think the same thing happened with Nickeil Alexander-Walker. And I think the same thing happened with, Ochai Agbaji to a certain extent. But Agbaji's so damn athletic and he is such a wanting player that he has earned the right to keep getting those minutes. But guys like THT, guys like NAW, those guys are dead now. Like it's going to be really interesting to see like who stays and who goes.
I'm not a big fan of the concept of being so hot and cold on guys. I think that was one of the things that I really didn't like about Quinn Snyder, that guys just never saw the floor. There were some guys on that roster that literally just never played.
When you were done with Quinn, you never got started again. Like you were in the doghouse and he locked the door.
Yeah.
Like it was over.
And to me, I just think if I'm Will Hardy, you can't do that. Like I think I agree with the concept that you got to have a top 7. On any roster, you got to have a top 7. You got your 5 starters and the 2 guys who are first off the bench. That's just how the business of rosters work. But those final, 4 or 5 guys, like they should get, it's not hard to find 10 minutes a night for a guy. It's just not. There are plenty of minutes.
I also think that a week from now, this roster is going to look markedly different.
Yeah. Yeah.
The NBA trade deadline is a week away. And I think it's going to look remarkably different for the Utah Jazz. And I think when you're a guy like an NAW, I don't think they're going to move him. I think he has very little value in this league. Well, we're going to find out what he is March, April, May, because, I mean, it just is one of those things, or really March, April. You're going to find out who that cat is because that's who's going to be here to play.
Yeah.
And I think that you should be thrilled as a Jazz fan. And I think this is part of that conversation about, is this team a playoff team? And I don't necessarily believe that this is a playoff team. Right now you are. You're at what? A game over 500 in the 9th spot. You're a playoff team. But I also think this roster is going to be significantly different. I will tell you adamantly, I was told yesterday that Mike Conley has now become the most in-demand Utah Jazz player in the trade market, and that Miami has significantly stepped up its push to make a deal that involves Mike Conley. Now, they can't do it on their own, and we talk about this repeatedly, but they don't have the capital to do it on their own, in that they don't own their pick in this coming draft. There is some question about what Miami can offer, because the Jazz have told the Heat they're not interested in taking Duncan Robinson.
Right.
So that really limits what they can do. And now that Tyler Hero is a starter, I mean, they're not trading Tyler Hero at this point. And I think the thing with Miami that makes them so interesting is they're one of the top suitors on Malik Beasley as well. So can you put Conley and Beasley into the same deal? I think you can. And I think you can get significant balance in return for that. The question is, who's that third team? And again, I think that you have to try and do a deal with Phoenix, because I think Phoenix is a great dance partner. I think Dallas is a really good fit, because they want Mike Conley. As we've reported on this show, the Dallas Mavericks, we have been told repeatedly, Mike Conley is one of their top targets. And I think the Clippers' interest in Mike has waned, because I think they believe they can get Fred VanVleet.
Yeah.
And so I think Fred VanVleet has become the hottest point guard commodity, because the Raptors have said he's available. And I think that Fred makes a lot of sense for the LA Clippers. Now, can they fit him under their cap? I mean, you're paying Paul George and Kawhi Leonard $80 million plus. So it's going to be tough to fit him under your cap. But there's a deal to be made there, certainly. And I think, again, I look at Mike Conley and Malik Beasley. Those guys are in demand around the league. I truly believe that Cleveland's a team, Miami's a team, Dallas is a team now. Like this OG Anunoby conversation we had yesterday.
Yeah.
I have told you repeatedly, I think there's only one place for OG Anunoby. And again, I think it's the New York Knicks. I think he is a better, more ready offensive force than RJ Barrett is. And I think the fact that the Knicks believe that they should be contending for multiple playoff wins, series wins. They want to go deep into the playoffs.
Yeah.
You're going to have to go get an OG Anunoby to do that, because he's a better defender than RJ Barrett is. Mm-hmm. And I think he's an upgrade. Now, does that mean that RJ Barrett's involved in that deal? Not necessarily. But I also don't see the Knicks giving 3 first-round picks to get that deal done.
But that's also another side of this whole thing, where you have, all these teams, including Danny, overvaluing their assets right now. And I look at it and I say, that makes sense, because we're still a week out. I'm telling you, this thing will heat up with like 3 days to go. Because once you're inside of like a couple of days, now you got to start solidifying stuff. Okay, we got a couple of days to go here. I got to get on the phone and I got to start actually making deals. We're through the feeling out process. We're through the test driving process. Now I need you to run my credit. Now I need you to start bringing me paperwork, right? That's where I feel like we're heading. And that's why I think you're starting to hear, hey, Mike Conley, Fred VanVleet. Like, VanVleet hadn't been on the radar for a minute. Like there was some rumblings like at the beginning of the year, just because, he's getting a little older now, but he's still got value. He's kind of in that same thought process as like JC is, where he's in his 30s, but he can still be massively value to a championship contender. VanVleet's the same guy. The difference is VanVleet's got a ring and VanVleet has, way more experience. That's the difference. So, to me, I just look at the trade market and I say, okay, 3 first-round picks for OG Anunoby is way too much.
Way too much.
2 first-round picks is a lot, but you can kind of stomach it. A pick and a player, to me, feels proper. But we'll see. My point is, these prices are going to come down.
Have to. You should have a 3 first-round pick tag on OG Anunoby. Well, now it's a week before the deadline, so, and again, I do enjoy it, but we don't often like saying, hey, we told you so. Well, we do. We say it all the time because we usually do. Anyway, the point is, this story from Shams yesterday. John Collins, the Atlanta Hawks have lowered his asking price.
Oh.
How many weeks ago did we tell you that? That they want to move John Collins, and all of this stuff about how John is now untouchable in Atlanta, complete garbage.
But think about Atlanta. Think about it. And this is what I encourage you guys to do about any of these trade scenarios. We get in the Instagram membership chat. Again, another reason to join the membership because you get access to these conversations.
Yes.
So a lot of people, I think it was Sam, I can't remember, because we get so many comments in that chat. But somebody, I think it was Sam, had put in a bunch of screenshots of different trade scenarios. And I said, hey, we don't like to do the whole speculation, 87 different trade scenarios. But like some of these have a lot of credence to them. And I would encourage you guys to put yourself in the shoes of Atlanta as an example. Atlanta is a team that's on the precipice of being a true postseason threat. Yes, they're a playoff team, but they're not someone who's actually like really gone out and won a big series.
And much like the Knicks, they have a ton of dysfunction.
So
on that
when you
roster.
look at John Collins is a guy who struggles to get his fair share of minutes on that team because you have other guys that eat those minutes. So it's like, to me, why would you not move John Collins?
And you need 3-point shooting there.
Yeah.
The question is with Atlanta, by the way, and they're here tomorrow night. You're going to see them. Bogdanovich is a really interesting player. Again, we told you that he has been one of the most in-demand names on the trade market. And the question is, does Atlanta want to move him?
Yeah.
They could have a deal for him, no doubt about it. Phoenix would they would do backflips to get Bogdanovich on that roster. I don't know that there's an appetite for Atlanta to do that. And if they're serious about making a run, I think they're going to have to move John Collins at a minimum, because you need a knockdown wing player there. Because DeJounte Murray, as good as he has been for them, and I think he has been good, again, it's created dysfunction. And I think what you need is a Malik Beasley standing on the wing for them, a role player who doesn't have to be a volume guy, right? I think that's really, and a guy that knocks down the three at a higher level, that's Malik Beasley.
Yeah.
So I think you need that, and you need Trae Young to be consistently healthy and not be a pain in the ass, frankly. Speaking of Sam Mott, Sam says, question for you two. If you could get Miles McBride and we had to give up Colin Sexton, would you do? No, absolutely not.
No.
Miles McBride is a
Let's talk about a project.
He's a project.
Yeah.
I would agree with that. And he just has not been a contributor. Like, again, I think when you look at that Knicks roster, I mean, you have guys that you like on that team. Miles McBride is not a bad player. Quentin Grimes is a guy, when you look at Grimes, his development, he's averaging double figures now. But he's capable of giving you 20 on any night. Mm-hmm. Right? The problem with the Knicks, frankly, is they don't have enough three-point shooting. Again, another team that doesn't have enough three-point shooting. How is that possible in this league? And you're largely reliant on two guys to deliver the win. You have got to have Julius Randle. He's got to shoot threes, and he's got to perform at a high level. And if you're the Knicks, that's not a recipe for success.
Dude, the Knicks have too many Obi Toppins. They have too many McBrides. They have too many Grimes. You got to move some of these guys.
And by the way, the other team that I'm a little concerned about right now, the Cleveland Cavaliers. Because I think the Cleveland Cavaliers have come down to earth a little bit, because you're not getting I don't think you're getting the three-point shooting you thought you were going to get on that team. If it's not Don or Darius Garland shooting, I don't know that it's going in. They don't have a guy, and frankly, the frustrating guy on that team's been Dean Wade.
Yeah.
Because he's actually a really good corner three guy, but he hasn't played enough. Dean Wade has only played 23 games for them.
That was at half or so.
I mean that is, well, I mean, we're in the 50s now. So I just
less than half.
You played less than half. Like, he's your Joe Harris, and he's just not playing. Another team that needs another three-point shooter, the Brooklyn Nets.
Saying, you see all these teams, a lot of these teams in the East, couple in the West, that need help. They need, I'm telling you this, I don't know. And I know this is classic. I'm not breaking any news here. It's either going to be a million deals or not much is getting done. There is no in-between at the deadline. You don't get there were 2 deals made and that was it. It's going to be to the extremes here. And my opinion is that we're going to get a lot of deals, because anytime you've got a lot of teams that are fringe playoff team, like Atlanta, let's say, who's in the playoffs but doesn't have enough to get over the bump.
But call them what they are. When you have a lot of buyers and very few sellers, some teams are going to have to be on a tipping point. This is Toronto. Is Toronto a buyer or a seller? They should be a seller.
Yeah, they should be a seller.
Are the Knicks a buyer or a seller? We did a YouTube short the other day on this. The Knicks should be sellers. There's no doubt about that. The Knicks, and some of these teams that are sellers are also in a position where what you get in return is going to make you a buyer. Because I think if the Knicks have the balls to make trades and they're willing to give up the Obi Toppins and the McBrides and the Quentin Grimes and
this is my thing philosophically. Why would you not be willing to give those guys up? Like if I'm Leon Rose, what are you hanging on to?
Why is Hartenstein on this roster? If you're the Knicks, it's redundancy.
Yeah.
Now Mitchell Robinson's hurt right now, but he's going to be back here in 10 days. I think when you look at the Knicks should be a seller.
But come on,
but they should improve by selling.
You can't tell me, like Hartenstein's a great example of this conversation and the examples of things that need to be fixed at the trade deadline. You can't tell me that you don't have a G League guy you could bring up to be a backup bench player while Mitchell's
But he'd be
hurt.
a third, right? Like he'd be a third center. Like if you look at the combination of Mitchell Robinson and Julius Randle should be plenty of size.
Yes.
But who's the problem in this conversation? RJ Barrett. Because RJ Barrett's soft. He's not the rebounder he should be. He's not he's just a soft guy. Now, if you turn RJ Barrett and OG Anunoby, Julius Randle, and Mitchell Robinson, now we're cooking with gas.
Yes.
Right? And that's, to me, that's the issue for them. They have got to determine who's staying and who's going.
And look at what ESPN's running out, right? This rumor mill about Fred VanVleet to the Lakers now. But again, that doesn't make a lot of sense.
I don't know how you make that trade.
Yeah.
Because is Toronto, and I understand why Toronto would take Russell Westbrook in an expiring deal. He's got a $47 million expiring contract. That's a lot of bread, dude.
Yep.
Like, I understand that for a rebuilding team. It's why I advocated for taking Russell Westbrook with the Jazz. I totally advocate for that. But are you really going to trade Fred VanVleet for cap space? Cap space and what? Is Lonnie Walker getting that deal done? Probably not. Is, Austin getting that deal?
Reeves.
Austin Reeves.
But I don't want to trade Austin Reeves.
That's
you know
my
what
point.
I mean? Like, I don't
is
want to move
Austin
those
Reeves
guys.
getting that done? Is this not any different than Anthony Davis, who's always hurt, and you gave up a boatload of young talent? Wouldn't you love to have Kyle Kuzma? I don't know. Is Kyle Kuzma with the Washington or with the Lakers?
Yeah.
I want the Washington version, not the Lakers
street
version.
clothes Davis.
Like that. That's the question.
Yeah.
It's one of these things where you have to figure out who you are and where you're going. And I think Toronto understands that they have I think they know that Pascal Siakam is not a guy that can be your best player on a championship roster.
Yeah.
He can't. He wasn't when they won. He's not now. Fred VanVleet's going to get a pretty good extension here. Like, if I'm Toronto, I'm trading him.
Yeah.
I am. I don't know that the Lakers have the balls to get it done. I really don't. And again, I still maintain, why isn't the Milwaukee Jay Crowder deal done yet? Because I was told the other day that was very close.
Yeah.
Why didn't that deal happen yet? Well, my guess is that Milwaukee and Phoenix are trying to figure that out because, by the way, who's got leverage in that deal? Who's got leverage in that trade? If Jay Crowder winds up in Milwaukee and the Suns trade Crowder to Milwaukee, who's got the leverage in that deal? And the answer is, I don't know. I don't think any
fucking ass.
Phoenix absolutely has to make that trade. Jay Crowder is a black hole in their roster. No production, paying him big money, nothing. That is a dead spot on your roster. Make that trade, right? Okay, so you would think Milwaukee has the leverage. Well, actually, Milwaukee needs a 3-and-D guy. And my guess is Jay Crowder can fill that role for them. You've got to have a better defense on the wing, and you've got to have a guy that can knock down the three.
Yeah.
It's Jay Crowder. So Phoenix has the leverage, right? Well, no, but Phoenix wants to win a championship, so Milwaukee wants to.
Yeah.
Who's the leverage in that
And that's
deal?
why I'm saying the Danny Ainge is an X factor in all of these concepts.
And if you're Danny Ainge, just back up the boat and let it drift into the middle of their ocean.
Yeah.
And be the bridge to make that deal work.
Yep.
Because Phoenix owns all of its future draft capital.
Do you see the gray area in that kind of situation with, what he was just describing between Phoenix and Milwaukee? Who's got the leverage? Who's got the power? And sometimes it's undefined, and that's where when I always talk about, hey, Danny's good at painting the picture and really in a nice way, in a savvy way, in a really constructive way, tightening the screws on trades because he's like, hey man, this is this. Like, I truly believe, and this could be totally wrong. I could be way off base on this, but just on the trades he's been able to make, I've thought a lot about how is it even possible that he got that kind of value? How is it even possible that he got Walker Kessler out of Minnesota as part of the Gobert deal? And what I've come to, and again, could be wrong, but what I've come to is Danny Ainge paints a picture. He storytells, which is a really effective sales tactic. Hey, listen, you know that you're going to have Karl Anthony Towns and Rudy Gobert. You're going to be the most dominant team at the rim. We look at Rudy's 70% field goal percentage. You really think that having those two guys, you're not going to be able to go and chase a championship? We all know that they're not going to be able to chase a championship.
And what happens, though?
Yeah.
What happens is Minnesota buys into that, and then Danny Ainge is like, by the way, I'm going to have to get Walker Kessler to make that domination for you.
Yeah.
To make that happen and to have you win a championship, I'm going to have to get Walker Kessler.
Yeah.
That's what people are worried about. That's the don't get Anged thing.
Yeah, so that's what I'm saying. Like, when we're talking about Atlanta, when we're talking about Phoenix, Milwaukee.
Well, but Miami becomes a very interesting example in this.
Yes.
Because Miami is going to have to help. If they're going to land Beasley or Mike Conley, they're going to have to get help.
Threesley.
And I think, again, I still maintain this three-way deal with Bogdan Bogdanovic going to Phoenix, Jay Crowder going to Atlanta, Vando and Beasley in that trade, and then you're going to wind up getting John Collins in return.
Yeah.
And, really
Saric.
Dario Saric is probably the best contract. And you'll include a guy like Talon Horton-Tucker's $10 million deal. He'll go to Atlanta, and you'll wind up with, I think, probably Conley or Beasley in that deal. Like, there is a deal to be done there. There's a deal to be done. And I think Atlanta would do it. If Atlanta got Beasley, I think they would do it. Yeah. I think and I'm telling you, again, not to keep telling you I told you so, but what did we tell you about Phoenix and Chris Paul?
Yes.
Dude.
They're looking for point guard help in Phoenix. And again, I think we told you that 10 days ago. What was the report yesterday out of Phoenix? Oh, they're done with Chris Paul. They realize he's no longer the future, and they cannot rely on him. So that's why Phoenix is in on Fred VanVleet and Mike Conley as well. I again will say, I think the loudest suitor right now is probably Miami for Mike Conley.
Yeah.
I think his likely end spot would be Dallas, and I think the LA teams are on Fred VanVleet. I think that's what I've been hearing, and I think there's no doubt about that in my mind that Miami could really benefit. Because Kyle Lowry's just not that dude. Kyle Lowry and CP3 are almost the same guy at this point.
Yep.
And I look at Mike Conley, and again, look at Mike's line last night. And I know again, it's not going to be spectacular, and you're going to call me crazy, I'm sure. Mike Conley last night, 5 of 8, 0 of 3 from 3, 9 of 9 from the line, right? He gives you 3 boards, 8 dimes, 2 blocks, 19 points.
Solid, dude.
What does he do for you? And the stat there that matters most, in my opinion, 9 for 9 from the line. And we've talked about this now for an extended amount of time. You've got to be able to get to the line and make your free throws in this league. Donovan Mitchell is the perfect example of that. You've got to be able to get to the line and make your free throws.
Yep.
And I feel like Mike Conley brings a lot of value in that. Yeah. I truly do. All right, let's get your comments in here. Brent Burnett says the Jazz have the best approach, which is to be a buyer and a seller. I don't know that they're not in any way a buyer, in my opinion. I think
proper label is an operator.
An operator.
Yeah, that's the proper label.
And by the way, this isn't a secret, or they're not doing something. This is exactly what Danny Ainge did in Boston. He spent 1 year completely rebuilding that roster and picked up a bunch of assets and players and flipped that into we're going to win a championship. And that's exactly what I'm telling you he's doing now. Danny Ainge straight up sat here and said, hey, I'm not a young guy. I don't have time for a rebuild.
Yeah.
He's not doing what Oklahoma City's doing. He's not doing that. It just is. I just don't know how you get away from the fact that you've got to trade. And I tried to avoid talking about this today, but you've got to trade Jordan Clarkson. And I know it pisses everybody off when I say that, but you've got to trade him.
Yeah.
It is so imperative. One of the NBA guys I was talking to yesterday said re-signing him is missing an opportunity to get a superstar.
Yeah.
Because he's worth multiple picks, which are worth a star player. At some point, and it won't be to Utah, a guy like Bradley Beal is going to get traded. That guy is going to get traded. He is just wasting away in Washington. You don't do that with just players. You've got to send significant draft capital there.
Yeah.
And I think that's why that Jordan Clarkson trade is so incredibly important. It's just really, really, in my mind, it's important. Mr. Johnny, 4-way race to acquire Mike Conley, Dallas, Miami, Phoenix, and the Clippers.
Yeah.
I think the Clippers are far more focused on Fred VanVleet.
Yeah, and I think the front runners there are Miami and Dallas. I
would agree
really
with that.
like those two teams need him.
I would agree with that. And
So
we'll see. I don't know. Riley O'Brien, what's up, my guy? He says, in a redraft of the 2022 NBA draft, where would Walker Kessler be selected into what program? Oh, man.
Program.
I mean, if you look at, I think the only winner outright in the draft so far has been Orlando. I mean, what Banchero's doing in Orlando is, we watched a bunch of him last night or the other night. I mean, it's nothing short of spectacular. I mean, if you look at the top picks in this draft, Paolo Banchero, home run for the Magic. Chet Holmgren, disaster for the Thunder. The Rockets, Jabari Smith, I don't know. That team's, they need to make a move. The Kings, Keegan Murray, home run in my opinion. The Pistons with Jaden Ivey, home run. The Pacers, this to me also is a home run. Mathurin has been awesome for them. Shaden Sharp,
meh.
Okay. Dyson Daniels, probably not for the Pelicans. I think you could probably do better. I think if you look at these names, I think it's probably 6 up. I wouldn't change the pick. The top 6 picks, I wouldn't change it. But didn't he go, I think he went 22 to the Grizzlies. I mean, there's not a pick down there that, I mean, AJ Griffin maybe, Ochai Agbaji. I think we'd all take Walker Kessler over Ochai. Jalen Duran with the Hornets. I think his potential is huge. I think the conversation probably starts at 7 with Shaden Sharp.
Yeah.
That's where you could start maybe. But I think the bottom half of the first round, there's not a lot there. Like Nikola Jovic becomes a very interesting centerpiece of Jazz trades because I don't see how you make a deal with Miami that doesn't include Jovic.
Yeah. There's no point.
Why would you do that?
Yeah, there's no point.
Right? I mean, but again, that's just me. I wouldn't make a trade with Miami that doesn't include him.
Yeah.
I think that highly of him. But I think certainly anywhere after the top 6, I think you could put him into that conversation. There's no doubt about that. A couple more, and then we'll get to football at 50. Hullabilly says, we could trade J.C. Beasley and Rudy Gay. Hope we keep Mike. You won't. I think you should hope to keep Malik Beasley. You won't. But Beasley's 25 years old. That's a guy that in 5 years is still going to be playing at a very high level. So I think you would hope to keep him. You know, Matthew Webb says Bradley Beal, no thank you. Bradley Beal's going to go somewhere, and I still think it's the Knicks.
Yeah.
I'll probably die on that hill. But I think it's the Knicks, and he's going to be the reason somebody wins a championship because that guy is an absolute killer.
Yeah.
An absolute killer. And the problem is there's no leverage in Washington. You don't have to play. You're going to manage your load in the locker room by yourself in the dark.
It's easy, but the difference is you're not winning a championship.
It is. Ron Nolan, good morning to you. I don't follow the Jazz, but I think I know more about the team than the average fan. It's the damn show's fault. Thanks to the followers, and I guess the host too. You're welcome.
Yeah, you're welcome. You're welcome.
Anton said yesterday I blocked my ex, but the Memphis stat keepers counted the block for Jaren Jackson Jr.
Well, you know, it is what it is, man.
You know,
it is what it is.
You know, Hullabilly says F that. Ochai and Walker are off the table. You know, Hullabilly also says nah, Jovic can stay there. Why don't you like Jovic? I mean, do
your homework on him, bro.
Dude, he's crazy. He's going to be crazy good. I think crazy good. Brent, final comment on this before football 50 says Jazz don't really need to do anything but make trades that increase odds for 2023. Odds for what? Because again, if we're talking about the draft, I'm telling you they're not pitching themselves to be one of the first 2 picks in the draft.
I don't know why we obsess on the draft, dude.
Danny Ainge is not going to put at the very least isn't Victor Wembanyama a project.
Yeah.
He's a developmental project, right? At the very least, Scoot Henderson is a project. You're going to have to develop him. Is that what championship teams do? Teams that are trying to win a championship in the next 5 seasons. Are you drafting developmental projects? I think you're probably not. I think you're probably not. You know, like I just don't know why you would do that.